The whole process was as expected, the result was pretty precise, and the landing was very stable.
What if I told you that while the world was busy arguing about space budgets and new satellites, China quietly landed on the far side of the moon and started mining a resource that could power the planet for thousands of years? This isn't science fiction. This is happening right now. Most people have no clue what's really going on up there. By the time the world wakes up, it might already be too late. The moon's hidden treasure. If you look up at the moon on a clear night, you only ever see one face. The same pockmarked familiar surface stares down at us because of a cosmic trick called tidal locking. For thousands of years, humanity's stories, ambitions, and curiosity have been focused on that bright lunar landscape. But in the 21st century, the real action shifted to the far side, the part hidden from Earth's view. This is the place where China planted its flag, not just for glory, but with a clear strategy: to quietly lay claim to the most valuable energy source in the solar system. For decades, countries like the United States, Russia, and Europe have treated the moon as a trophy. The first to land, the first to plant a flag, the first to bring back rocks. Each mission made headlines and history books. But China's ambitions are different. They saw something everyone else overlooked. Deep within the lunar soil lies helium-3, a rare isotope that is virtually non-existent on Earth. Unlike most fuels, helium-3 could unlock clean, nearly limitless energy through nuclear fusion, powering cities without radioactive waste. If anyone could figure out how to use it, they could change the course of human civilization. So how did China get so far ahead in this new lunar race? It started with vision and silence. While other countries publicized every launch, China played the long game. In 2019, the Chang'e 4 mission stunned the world by landing softly on the far side, a feat no other nation had attempted. That mission was just the beginning. With robotic rovers and a series of satellites, China began mapping the hidden craters and gathering vital data about helium-3 deposits. Western space agencies took notice but struggled to catch up, bogged down by shifting political priorities and a lack of urgency. The lunar surface may look barren, but it's a goldmine for anyone with the resources and patience to exploit it. Helium-3 doesn't just lie scattered across the soil. It's embedded in layers deposited by billions of years of solar wind. Extraction is tough. You have to mine, heat, and process tons of regolith to isolate even a small quantity. But China's state-run program didn't shy away from the challenge. They threw the weight of a nation behind the effort, pushing ahead with new landers, more advanced mining tech, and plans for permanent lunar outposts. Unlike the fanfare that accompanied the American Apollo missions, much of China's work remained under wraps. The secrecy was by design. Back on Earth, most people, especially in the United States, weren't paying attention. They saw press releases about new lunar robots or the occasional blurry photo from a rover. They didn't realize the implications. Every mission, every sample returned, every byte of data transmitted back to Beijing built a foundation for something far bigger. China's approach was methodical and relentless. When international news finally reported that Chinese scientists had successfully extracted the first micrograms of helium-3 from moon dust, the world barely blinked. It sounded like a footnote. In reality, it was the first step toward an energy revolution. What makes helium-3 so valuable, anyway? Unlike uranium or plutonium, which power today's nuclear reactors, helium-3 fusion promises almost no radioactive waste. The reaction is clean, producing a burst of energy and little else. On Earth, helium-3 is almost impossible to find. The magnetic field and thick atmosphere protect us from the solar wind that delivers this isotope to the moon. Only a few kilograms exist in laboratories worldwide, used for research and niche applications. On the moon, though, there are an estimated 1 million metric tons of helium-3 locked in the upper layers of soil. That's enough to meet all of humanity's energy needs for centuries. China saw the potential early. They knew that whoever controls helium-3 would control the future of energy. Imagine a world where a single lunar shipment could power a city for years. Oil, gas, and even solar might become obsolete overnight. The economic and political implications are staggering. Control the supply, and you control the flow of power and information. The stakes are even higher because the race is happening out of sight. While the United States debated space budgets and infrastructure, China quietly laid claim to key lunar territories, positioning themselves to dictate terms when the technology matures. But there's another dimension to the story that few outside the space industry grasp. Mining helium-3 isn't just about energy, it's about quantum supremacy. Cooling quantum computers to near absolute zero is one of the biggest hurdles in making them practical for everyday use. Helium-3 is the perfect refrigerant for this task, far superior to anything commonly used today. If China secures enough helium-3 to scale up quantum computing, they could leapfrog the rest of the world in secure communications, code breaking, and artificial intelligence. Suddenly, every secret on the planet is vulnerable, every encrypted message at risk. That's what keeps Western analysts up at night. Space is not just a new frontier, it's the new battlefield for global supremacy. China's moon mining operation isn't about chasing headlines or beating the United States to a flag-planting ceremony. It's about building the infrastructure of tomorrow's power: lunar outposts, autonomous mining robots, deep space communication relays. All of it forms a web of capability that could leave competitors in the dust. The most disturbing part? Most governments are only now waking up to the scale of the challenge. How did we let it get this far? Was it arrogance, underestimation, or just a lack of imagination? While lawmakers debated the cost of a new lunar orbiter, China quietly tested regolith processing prototypes in secret facilities. As university researchers published papers about the potential of helium-3, Chinese engineers were already running simulations on their own quantum hardware. The West's open, decentralized approach made it easy for everyone to see what was happening, but it also made it easy to underestimate the consequences. If you think this is just another chapter in the space race, think again. The far side of the moon has become a high-stakes chessboard. Every move is calculated. Every advance builds on years of preparation. For now, most of the world watches from a distance, unsure of what China is really doing behind that lunar curtain. But the day is coming when the first major shipment of helium-3 returns to Earth. When that happens, the balance of power could shift overnight. Are we ready for the fallout, or is it already too late to catch up? The moon may never look the same again. What secrets are being uncovered in those silent, uncharted valleys? And more importantly, what does China's lunar gambit mean for the rest of us on Earth? Quantum shadows, geopolitical nightmares, and the uncomfortable truth about tomorrow. As news of China's relentless progress on the far side of the moon spread across military and scientific circles, an undercurrent of anxiety swept through governments and industries that once viewed the lunar frontier as the stuff of science fiction. Now it was a geopolitical reality, unfolding at a speed that left even seasoned analysts struggling to catch their breath. Behind the closed doors of think tanks and government briefings, the conversation kept circling back to the same inescapable truth. The moon was no longer a grey, lifeless sphere hanging in the night sky. It had become the ultimate high ground, and the first nation to seize its resources would shape the destiny of every society on Earth. China, with its rapidly growing lunar presence and meticulous strategies, was not merely exploring, it was laying the groundwork for economic, military, and technological dominance that could tip the global balance for generations. Much of the suspense surrounding China's lunar operations revolved around helium-3, an element so rare on Earth that it had taken on the aura of legend among energy researchers. Unlike traditional nuclear fuels, helium-3 promised clean fusion power, with none of the radioactive waste or meltdown risks that haunt current technologies. With even a modest supply, the world's entire energy grid could be revolutionized. providing enough power to light up cities, power industries, and run data centers for centuries. But the promise of helium-3 was not just about electricity. It was about unlocking quantum computing at a scale that would make today's encryption and cybersecurity seem quaint. As quantum computers matured, they would need to be cooled to unimaginably low temperatures, and helium-3's unique properties made it the perfect candidate for pushing these machines to their limits. Whoever controlled the supply could potentially dominate finance, communications, and even global military codes. While politicians in Washington debated funding for lunar probes and satellite constellations, China pushed ahead with infrastructure and logistics that stunned Western observers. It was not just about mining rocks or planting flags. Chinese engineers were designing supply chains, transport craft, robotic mining stations, and communication relays that could operate autonomously in the darkness beyond Earth's gaze. American officials, faced with mounting evidence of resource extraction and unexplained construction on the far side, grew alarmed at the implications. In the old days, a spy satellite could reveal an adversary's intentions with a single flyover. But now, the moon's rotation kept one hemisphere permanently hidden from Earth, forcing the United States and its allies to consider new strategies and technologies just to keep up. Each time the topic came up in briefings, the same chilling question hovered in the room. What exactly was China building in the shadows, and how close were they to changing the rules of global power forever? The sense of urgency was not limited to the corridors of political power. In Silicon Valley and European research labs, engineers raced to advance their own quantum technologies, haunted by the knowledge that helium-3 could be the missing link. Reports of China's shipments returning from the lunar surface, small but regular, suggested a carefully planned escalation. If China succeeded in bringing home enough helium-3 to cool quantum computers reliably, the next breakthrough would not be theoretical. It would be operational, turning the promise of quantum supremacy into a hard-edged advantage. Encrypted data from governments, financial institutions, and multinational corporations all could be laid bare with a leap in computational power. The prospect sent shudders through the global security community, where experts warned that existing defenses could be rendered obsolete in the blink of an eye. At the United Nations and in summits from Brussels to Tokyo, officials struggled to form a consensus. Should they call for international oversight of lunar mining? Could new treaties be negotiated fast enough to slow down the race? Or was the pace of innovation already beyond the reach of diplomacy? China's government, meanwhile, pointed to its peaceful intentions and the benefits of shared progress. But state media celebrated the lunar miracle as a triumph of national will and technical genius, fueling a surge of patriotic pride at home. In classrooms and public squares across China, the moon landing was not just a scientific achievement, it was a symbol that the country had emerged from a century of humiliation and was now charting its own destiny among the stars. For ordinary citizens, stories of Chinese astronauts working in remote lunar outposts became a source of fascination, even as foreign journalists and space experts quietly raised alarms. Back in the United States, the debate turned personal for some. Former astronauts voiced frustration over delays in the Artemis program. Defense officials cautioned that every year of inaction risked ceding the lunar economy to China's centralized system. Venture capitalists wondered if their investments in space technology could compete with the scale and discipline of Chinese state planning. The sense of being outmaneuvered gnawed at a generation raised on the legacy of Apollo and the space shuttle, who had always believed that leadership in space was an American birthright. Now, they watched as a new reality took shape. In the age of quantum computing and lunar mining, history belonged to the swift and the bold, not the hesitant. The cultural and psychological dimensions of this competition were hard to ignore. In China, every milestone was broadcast with fanfare, inspiring children to dream of becoming astronauts and engineers. State media emphasized themes of unity, sacrifice, and national rejuvenation, while quietly discouraging public discussion of the risks and costs involved. In the West, by contrast, space exploration remained contentious, with environmentalists, economists, and policymakers often pulling in different directions. Even as scientists acknowledged the extraordinary potential of lunar resources, they worried about setting off a new wave of exploitation and competition that could spill over into conflicts back on Earth. These strategic implications deepened further as the dual use of space technologies became apparent. A nation that could move robotic miners across the moon could also position sensors, communication arrays, or even defensive systems beyond the reach of rivals. Satellite imagery showed evidence of rapid infrastructure growth on China's lunar bases. Observers speculated about the true nature of certain large structures, wondering if they concealed not just mining equipment, but also the seeds of a future lunar defense network. With each new launch, the question grew more urgent. Would the moon remain a frontier for peaceful exploration, or was it quietly becoming the world's newest military outpost? The race to control lunar helium-3 and the technologies it enabled had ripple effects across the entire global system. International alliances came under stress as old partners jockeyed for access to emerging space markets. New players, including India and private space companies, struggled to keep up with the resources and organization of China's lunar program. The possibility of an economic order shaped by whoever could provide cheap, clean energy from fusion became a subject of fevered debate. Even as environmentalists hoped that lunar mining might one day reduce pressure on Earth's resources, others worried about the unforeseen consequences of large-scale extraction from another celestial body. All of these threads converged on a single, unsettling point. The outcome of the lunar competition would not be measured in years or even decades, but in the long arc of civilization. The stakes were nothing less than the structure of global power, the resilience of democratic systems, and the ability of open societies to keep pace with authoritarian models of technological development. In the United States, calls grew louder for a renewed commitment to space infrastructure, quantum research, and international partnerships. Yet, at every turn, the path forward was complicated by budget battles, regulatory hurdles, and a media landscape that often struggled to make sense of developments that seemed more like science fiction than breaking news. And as the world entered a new era, the fundamental lesson remained as old as history itself. In every age, the technologies that reshape society arrive first as whispers and rumors, then as a wave that crashes over the old order before anyone is ready. China's moon mining operation was more than a technical feat or a geopolitical chess move. It was a turning point, a test of whether the rest of the world would wake up in time to respond. The stakes, once hidden in shadows, were now clear for all to see. A new moon rises as Earth's brightest minds study the shifting shadows of the moon. The world stands at a crossroads that few could have imagined a generation ago. What began as a distant, almost mythical dream, mining the far side of the lunar surface, has transformed into a contest with stakes that reach deep into the heart of global security, technology, and human destiny. In this new era, the moon is no longer silent or forgotten. It has become a stage where national ambitions and technological visions play out for all to see, a silent witness to the fears and hopes of a planet in transition. China's rapid ascent, marked by its strategic focus on helium-3 and quantum infrastructure, has not only disrupted old patterns, but forced every other major power to rethink what is possible. No longer can the world afford to dismiss the impact of lunar resources or the quiet revolution taking place above our heads. Every launch, every discovery, and every policy decision sends ripples through a fragile balance that binds together economies, governments, and even the privacy of our most personal communications. Yet, within this race lies more than rivalry. There is an invitation to innovate, to collaborate, and to push the boundaries of what humanity can achieve. The moon has become a mirror, reflecting both our greatest fears and our boldest aspirations. Whether this new chapter ends in distrust and division, or marks the beginning of a more enlightened era, depends on the choices made today by leaders, scientists, and citizens around the globe. It is easy to imagine a future where nations turn inward, guarding secrets and sowing suspicion. But there is also a world where the lessons learned from this lunar rivalry lead to new alliances, shared breakthroughs, and a deeper understanding of our shared existence. The story of China's lunar ambitions is far from finished. Who will shape the destiny of the moon, and who will simply watch from the darkness below? The answer, as always, rests with those bold enough to look up and act. So now the world watches, waits, and worries. The next step in this silent high-stakes race is not happening in the open, but in the dust and darkness of the far side of the moon. Are we ready to face what comes next? If this story unsettled you, make sure you subscribe, drop a comment, and join the conversation, because the next revelation about space, power, and our own future is just around the corner.